Hello and welcome to the Syndicated Vomit Podcast, an extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, I'm your host, Mac Taylor, here to talk to you guys today about more Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, episodes 41 through 44. As we are trekking our way through Season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, we're almost out of Season 1, which means we'll start, getting into other things to talk about, Typically, this would be 40 episodes. We would be done with a season and moving on to the next. But the first season is 60 episodes, then 52 episodes in season 2, and then then after that we start getting to standard episode runs, or 40 episode runs typically per season after that. So while we're on our way there, we're still gonna take a while on season 1. No, that was a long way of me saying this isn't going to be as long next time, but that's I think it was necessary to say that. Might cut some of that out though. So let's start with episode 41, Rita's Seed of Evil. So on top of everything else that these kids seem to have time to do, they are, always helping the environment. They want to go plant some trees with Billy's special fertilizer liquid stuff. Not entirely sure what it was supposed to do, but it's special, but not really prevalent to the plot. You would think that would be how they would use it, a part of it, to beat the villain in the episode. It never comes up besides that's what he's doing. Bulk and Skull did the classic bought fake plants to try to show off to the class because they're not capable of being botanists themselves. So there's some good comedy there. And then he gets mad at Skull for leaving the tag on the plant, and he ends up getting green foam dumped on him. And there's a green thumb joke about it there. But more of that foam substance. They a lot of their budget must go toward making this foam and getting various food coloring for whatever it needs to be that week. So Rita is going to send forth her octo plant, which is essentially just a giant plant with a bunch of vines. I don't really know why octopus had to be thrown into it, because it didn't really specifically have 8 vines. It had, we really didn't know the extent of how many it had. So it didn't need to be, because especially after the pine octopus, did we really need more plant-based octopus kaiju? But nevertheless, that is what she sends out. It kind of reminds me of Sprout from the Lilo and Stitch series, where it just essentially will grow. That's what it and like destroy shit. At least that's what it looked like at the start. Eventually, it turns out to be a kaiju itself, and not a bad design. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but nevertheless, that is Rita's plan, because it always has to relate to what the Power Rangers are doing. So we get an eco montage, complete with a song, complete with like 90s Captain Planet type song, with them planting these fucking trees. Bulk and Skull are hiding, trying to steal the plants, but Squat shows up to plant the octa plant, so it scares Bulk and Skull away. And they lock themselves in a porta potty, which they end up stuck in. And spend most of the episode in said porta potty. So this is when we move out of Bulk and Skull being the bullies, and more of them being goofballs. And they become more prevalent in episodes. Instead of just being at the school or at Ernie's, they're like, just they have parts in episodes, like them like we'll keep cutting to them in the porta potty in this episode, things like that. So they're starting to get a bigger role because the fans enjoy them. And the writers are like, hey, there's something here we need to expand upon. So Squat plants the octoplant in the soil, and then the Rangers try to see what's up, but putties arrive and Squat leaves. Billy, it's a typical fight. I don't talk a lot about the putty fight sequences because, it's kind of the same old a lot of the times. But Billy does use a bucket even though it's a plastic bucket, it makes like that ching ching sound. And he kind of like puts it over its head, hits it, pushes the bucket into it, so you use some good use of props, you use the scenery, right? Bulk and Skull are trapped in said porta potty, and Skull's like, Bulk, I have to go. And then he's like, get me out of here. It's pretty fun. Like I said, I'm glad they've started to expand Bulk and Skull a little bit, because I really do enjoy their characters. And honestly, in some episodes, they're the best part of it. It's not the Power Rangers, the robots, the monsters. Sometimes it's just Bulk and Skull that can make or break an episode. Actually, they're very important roles in the show, and if we didn't have such competent actors in them, I don't know if these characters would have had the longevity they would go on to have. So a bunch of tremors start, and no, not the worms, but literal, earth tremors, because the plant. So they go to the exposition machine, and the exposition machine doesn't have any exposition to tell them. He doesn't know. Zordon doesn't know what's going on. So it's like, well, what is the point? Zordon, that's your whole thing, is you're supposed to just know shit. Other than that, you're just a floating head. So like, what good are you to us if you can't tell us what this shit is? So Jason goes to investigate why Squat was there. And Zordon's like, oh, hey, by the way, I found out you got to destroy the seeds to stop the monster. So like, he was like way too late with that information. So the tentacles start coming after him, and that, it's Japan, so it could have got really dirty, but it didn't, because Jason morphs but gets his ass whooped by these tentacles. Like, they just beat his ass. So the others morph in action, slice the vines off. And they go to dig up the seeds, but Goldar and Scorpina and more putties arrive. So Rita is just really cranking up the putties in these few episodes I watch. Like, there is just a lot of putties. Like, Finster's working. Oh, we haven't seen a lot of Finster in the episodes, but he's working overtime to make these monsters, or to make these putties. Because I think he can only make, like, per tray, he makes, like, 10. No, there was a bunch in these few episodes. So during the fight, Octoplant keeps growing and growing. And the Rangers are just overwhelmed by it. Especially Goldar is the strongest, so he actually does a few blows. But, like, between Goldar, Scorpina, and a bunch of putties, like, it's a lot for them to handle. So the Octoplant blooms into the actual kaiju, the actual thing it's supposed to be. And was a little underwhelming. I kind of liked the idea of this giant, kind of like how they dealt with the brain kaiju a little bit ago, where you could have like the flower center and just a bunch of giant tentacles tearing up the city that they would have had to use Megazord or something to fight. I would have liked that better, but it actually is just a normal monster of the week where the flower blooms. But it's not a bad design. It's like all silver with the flowers, and not, like I said, not terrible. We've seen some bad designs in this show. This is not one of those, but it's also not one that just glaringly stands out. It's not a Terror Toad or an Eye Guy or a Pudgey Pig or even a new Titus. It's just very meh within the design spectrum. So, and then it immediately grows. Like, Rita immediately grows it. So the dinosaurs get called in, and this was actually really interesting, because while the dinosaurs are coming in, the Octoplant starts attacking them. And I'm like, this is the first time, like, the villain didn't just let the dinosaurs go through their function and, like, get to the Megazord and all this. Like, it actually tried to stop them from coming in. Like, that's the first time anyone's thought of it. Because especially, there's a lot of time taken between morphing and getting the Zords and putting them together. Someone just was like, no, fuck this. I'm not going to wait around. I'm going to attack that. I thought that was a pretty interesting little scene. It was a very small scene, and it has not happened before or since, but I liked that. I liked that detail a lot. So they get to the Megazord, and the Octoplant just starts looking at itself in a nearby building, like in the windows. And while it's looking at its reflection, they get the power sword and just power slash it and kill it. So it's like the old tale of Narcissus. Like it essentially drowned trying to catch its own reflection. So it was an odd way to beat a monster. And it was over very quickly for all the buildup. Like it was over very quickly. And then Bulk and Skull are still in the porta potty, which then gets picked up and towed away. So they're still in it, and somehow no one noticed that they were in it. But then they show up to school all gross, and the principal smells them and faints because you got to do that smelly gag. And that brings us to episode 42, A Pig Surprise. Puns. So it's Pet Adoption Day, and the Rangers are now leading that on top of everything. Again, who does their scheduling? It's ridiculous. And this old lady's like, I need someone to adopt this pig. And she's got this huge potbelly pig, and it's an adorable little piggy. And then as the lady's walking away, Zach sees that she's a putty because she starts doing that weird like movement and the thing. It was a little weird to see like a human actor or actress do that. So Zach fights the putties that show up. Does a nice, like he jumps up, like gets a vine and like flips over it. It was very, very nicely done there. Whoops all their asses. Zach looks really... There's these couple episodes here, like Zach shines a little brighter than the rest. And it's not... We haven't really seen a lot of like Zach moments per se. So it was really nice to see him kind of have some spots. So Bulk and Skull actually end up adopting the pigs. Like, you got any pets that are interesting, unique, like us? So it is kind of fitting. I wish they would have the pig the whole series, but it's only this episode. So they adopt the piggy. His name is Norman. And Goldar, while talking to Rita, he's like, I'll show them they're in for a pig surprise. So he actually name drops the episode. And that is not something that happens in Power Rangers very often. So it was, even if the names are puns, we don't really see anyone say the phrase, you know? So I really liked that was a thing. I was like, hey, he said it. So Bulk is, Bulk and Skull are going around with Norman, who's just eating popcorn. And this girl comes up and she's like, he's adorable. What's his name? And Skull goes, Bulk. And he's like, not me, you idiot, the pig. Great stuff. Some of the Skull's lines are really good. Like, way better than any writing in this show. So I don't know if that was an ad lib because it just felt too good for early Power Rangers. However, Norman is then turned into Pudgey Pig, who terrorizes around Ernie's, and there's a fun scene where Bulk's holding a sandwich, and he has to like get coerced to give it up to Pudgey Pig so he doesn't get eaten. So Zach goes to fight it, but it disappears. And then everybody goes to the exposition machine. So even though it's turned into Pudgey Pig, it's still Norman. Although I don't know why she didn't take a Pudgey Pig and turn it into a cast a spell to turn it to make it look like a normal pig, but it's actually Pudgey Pig. I don't know why it was the flip. Why she took a pig and turned it into Pudgey Pig, but it's really a pig. I don't know why that was a thing. Other than a couple of jokes throughout this episode, but I don't know. In the grand scheme of it, it would have made sense to do it the other way. So they're not supposed to hurt Norman. They morph to action, and because they're trying to hold back as to not kill this pig, Pudgey Pig's not holding back, so they kind of get their ass whipped, but it makes sense why they're losing because they're not giving it 100%. But when Pudgey Pig shows up, he does this weird, like, he jumps off the roof, and then, like, it cuts to another scene of him jumping off the roof. Why did we have, like, a loop of him jumping off the roof? Like, why? It would just make sense to do the one. It looks weird. Like, I don't understand. Like, when they play reverse footage of someone jumping off a building to make it look like they backflipped onto it, that makes a little more sense to me, but him jumping, going back, and then jumping again makes zero sense within the context of this show. So that was just a weird editing choice that caught me off guard. So after the fight, it disappears again. And it was all just a distraction because they go off to try to find the pig. And he's like, they find Pudgy Pig trying to basically fuck a female pig at a farm. So this whole pig business was just a distraction so that Goldar could attack, which is actually a pretty decent plan. So they realize that even though it's Pudgy, like the Norman side is showing through because he's just trying to woo this female pig. So they teleport to Goldar, and then Scorpina and the Puddies arrive and attack. And Scorpina does the boomerang sword thing. She actually does land some hits on the Rangers. Again, she's still also pretty relevant to the plot and still pretty powerful. And the Puddies just get, their asses whipped. So they call the Dinosaurs, get the Megazord to fight Goldar. And Goldar's doing some good hits on the Megazord until they get the Power Sword, to which Goldar just leaves. And so that when they go to do the Power Slash, he disappears and it just does nothing. It goes through the air. And then Rita scolds him for retreating, but what else was he going to do? So then Billy turns Norman back to normal, and the farmer then takes in Norman, who basically gets himself a pig wife. Although I felt bad for Bulk and Skull, because at the end they bring a pig into class and Bulk and Skull run away because they have PTSD from pigs. But I don't understand why we had to shit all over Bulk and Skull in this one. They just wanted a pet. And they should have. I wish they'd had Norman the whole rest of the series. It would have been adorable just to see that. But we should have got a little pig, and eventually became a big pig. We didn't need a big pig the whole time. But that would have been really cute to have them have like a mascot the whole time. But to each their own. We can't always get what we want. That brings us to episode 43, Something Fishy. So there is they're planning on going like deep sea diving or just diving. I guess it's really not deep sea diving because they're not going super deep in the water. But Bulk and Skull plan on going fishing, and like there's a scene where Bulk's messy locker, everything spills out all over the place. His locker reminds me of JT's locker from Degrassi, The Next Generation. And then there's a scene where he steps on a net and Skull picks up the net and then Bulk falls and they chase each other around. Classic Bulk and Skull hijinks start the episode off. And apparently on top of everything else that he is, Jason's a certified diving instructor. Because of course he has time to do all that. And Billy is afraid of fish. But I was like, what about Fang? Wasn't he a fish? Or like part fish? Or something? And also, why have we never heard about this? Like, Zach's fear of spiders, we've actually, in snakes and stuff, we've touched on a couple of times. Like, even before it was, like, super prevalent to the plot, it was still known. So why was this not talked about at all, right? So instead of going diving, Billy and Kim are having a picnic. And he's like, what are we having? And she's like, fish and chips. And he's like, I'll just have the chips, thank you very much. Because apparently he can't eat fish either. Like, the dead fish scare him. And also, if Kim knew that he was afraid of fish, why would she pack fish? That seems like a real, like, dick move to do, first of all. But second of all, why are you afraid of, like, cooked fish? That's a little weird, right? So basically, the story behind it is that he was playing with a boat in the water and a fish bit him on the finger. That's it. That's what caused this, like, horrific fear of fish. Was it but it was a fairly large, like, fish that was on the little kid's hand in the flashback. But still, and he was just like, it's like on his hand, which that, kind of hard to believe it would hold on that long. Why he's got this huge fear of fish is because a fish bit him on the finger. It wasn't even like you could have had a little bit of a better story. It just seemed like a little lazy. So Bulk and Skull are fishing, and Bulk catches a no fishing sign. And Skull's like, hey, how'd they know you were going to go fishing today? And you look over and you see all they've caught is this big piles of trash. And like they both go to cast their lines out, and they both at the same time hook their belts and end up flipping themselves into the water. So again, really good, fun physical comedy from these two. A lot of good times to be had with Bulk and Skull. So the putties attack Billy and Kim, and Billy uses like the cooler. He's like, I know what to do, and he puts it over the putty's head and then kicks it in the stomach. And then that's it. And I'm like, what was the point of if you're just going to kick it in the stomach, why'd you need to put something over the head? And also, like, you couldn't have used the cooler any differently. You could have, like, thrown it up, and then when the putty caught it, like, did a spin kick. Instead, your big idea was like, I'm going to put it over its head. It was a little anticlimactic. So Kim and Billy head to the exposition machine. And Rita has unleashed her toxic goo fish. Oh no, it's because Billy's afraid of fish. The design of the goo fish isn't horrible per se, but it's a little, I think it's too brightly colored. It looks kind of weird at like first glance or whatever. It's not bad, but it's not great. Which is, could you notice the theme in the past few episodes has been like not terrible, but not like really memorable. So they morph into action, and there's more putties. And they do this backwards dive gag. So, like, it's supposed to be like him, like the goofish jumping out of the water at them, which, again, I don't know why they couldn't have filmed. Maybe because the suit couldn't be in the water that long or something. But, like, they couldn't have got the actor in the water jumping up and out. Or maybe he couldn't get the jump right because his feet are in the costume. Maybe that was part of it. Not entirely sure what the deal was, why he had to jump into the water and then they had to play that footage in reverse like he's jumping out of it. But I don't know. It looks jarring, and if you could do it, like film it normally, I think that would have been the better effect to do. But again, I don't know if there was a motion problem or a material problem or whatever. But it caught me. It didn't really sit right with me on that. So Rita casts a fear spell, because apparently she can cast a spell that takes someone's fears and amplifies them. I'm like, why couldn't we have done that before? I know you sent them to the island with the fear and the disappearing and all that, but if this was a thing you could do, like, why didn't you use this on Zach with the spiders? Why didn't you use it on Trini, the heights? Like, why are you just now doing this? It's that thing of like, why are we waiting so long to use these things? But now Billy's just completely bitched out, extremely afraid of this fish. The others finally finished their diving excursion so they can actually hear their communicators. So they morph to action, and then the fish retreat, so then they retreat back to Zordon. And basically they're like, Billy, you must face your fear to break the spell, which is, again, if it's a fear spell, how is he able to face the fear in the first place? If the spell is supposed to amplify his fear beyond control, a little bit of a complex way to get him to overcome his fear. Did she have to cast a fear spell? Like, couldn't he just be actually... If he couldn't even eat fish, couldn't he just actually be genuinely afraid and then overcome it organically? Do we have to try to force that or, like, really shove that down the throats of the viewer? Like, is that something we really need to do, or can we just let it happen? Not everything needs to be over-explained, right? So they morph back to action. Now there's even more putties than before. And the goofish targets Billy, but Jason comes in for the save. But he has this like silly string goo stuff that sticks people to the ground. So he sticks everybody but Kim. Then Kim comes to try to save Billy, and she gets hit with like these explosive starfish. I'm like, that is really cool. Why didn't we need to use more of that? I like that power. And then Billy goes and he figures out how to combat the silly string, the string shot stuff. He does like a flip over, like the flip is necessary actually for once. He's doing a flip over the goofish. The goofish shoots the string up and then he blocks it back. So gravity essentially pulls it back down onto the goofish, outsmarting him and using his own powers against him. It's a really good plot beat, right? Like that actually really makes sense. I was really surprised to see that, and actually, like, it actually all made sense. Someone actually thought that out of how Billy would, because he's the smarter one, would outsmart this creature. Just makes a lot of sense. I was really proud of the writers for that one. So Billy's now overcome the fear. Very fast that he overcame this fear. So Rita grows the monster. We get the Dinozords, the Megazord. Megazord breaks the monster's, like, he had like a swordfish spear, breaks that. Then he shoots more silly string, which sticks the Megazord, and then shoots an I-beam, so it completely rocks the Megazord. And they're like, we got to convert the goo to energy source for the Megazord. And I'm like, what? How is that possible? How can you take a monster's energy and use it as your own? And if you could do that, why have we not done that before? Why are we just now doing this, right? A little weird. So they convert the goo to energy, get the Megazord, power slash, boom, that's over with. And now Billy in the next scene is fishing with Ernie. So I guess he's overcome all the fear. Even though really when you face your fear, you still have to overcome it gradually. It's not like, it's like if you're afraid of sharks and like you finally can like try it, you're not just going to get like in a cage with a shark, right? Like you're going to baby step it. That was a little extreme. But he's fishing. And then Bulk comes in. He's like, well, I've caught the biggest one. And Skull pulls out a tuna can. Because he's like, I told you to get the biggest fish you could find. He's like, this is the only kind of fish I know. It was a fun little gag. And then he reaches in Billy's bag. And there's a lobster, which then bites him on the hand. So a lot of fun stuff with Bulk and Skull. They were kind of the saving grace of this episode. Because a lot of the episode, besides the whole Billy outsmarting the monster part, just seemed a little unnecessary and forced. So the Bulk and Skull stuff really was the saving grace for watching that episode, as they sometimes can be. So that brings us to the last episode we're going to talk about in this edition of the podcast, and that is episode 44, Lions and Blizzards, which when I first heard that episode name, I was like, what the fuck do lions and blizzards have to do with each other? But I knew, I was like, it's going to be something to do because the kaiju is going to be a lion that can cause snow. So they're having like these like sport kind of like relay game kind of thing, like in Olympic games you would have like at your school or whatever, like a field day. And it's the blue team, which is like Bulk, Skull, and Angela, and Angela, the one that Zach's always pining over, and the red team is all the Rangers. Which lucky they were all picked for the same team. So there's a lot of pratfalls by Bulk and Skull. Like Bulk falls over trying to run through the tires. When they're doing the wheelbarrow race, he drags Skull's face across the ground. Lots of that kind of stuff. And it all accumulates in a tug of war, which of course the Rangers win and Bulk and Skull get a face full of mud. And then Zach uses the whole race as an opportunity to flirt with Angela. And she seems like fairly receptive to his flirting, which, he has always been flirting with her throughout this whole show, right? There's multiple episodes of it. She's one of the only like recurring characters that isn't Bulk and Skull teachers or Rangers. Like she's one of the only student returning or recurring characters. And so like for one, she's not just like blowing Zach off. Like she's actually showing him like a little bit of attention. And he's not trying to think anything of it because, he's been shot down so many times, he's just used to it. So the trophy has been taken, and then the putties show up, and Kim does a really good split kick. Like she does the splits and kicks two putties. Really good split kick. And they get a really good fight song with it too. It's like, beat 'em up putty, like a putty fight song. I'm like, I really like this. And they're using things like slides, tire swings, doing the whole backwards flip stuff. A lot of really fun stuff. Like, they're really using the scenery for this scene. And Zach does a split kick, and then when he lands, does another, like, front kick. Like, it looked there's some really good choreography in this. I was really into that. So the lion trophy is turned into Gotan, which is a lion goat that can control weather patterns. Not really sure why the goat was necessary with the lion part. Like, I don't know what that played into it. So it's just like a lion cube. Kind of looks like Leomon from Digimon, but with like a goat head on his chest. Very weird design. Not bad. It on paper it just sounds goofy, but it's executed in a not so bad way. Although with all the fur and things put on there, which I know is probably not real animal fur, but still, I'm sure PETA would have a problem. So, Gotan is unleashed. And it happens in front of Bulk and Skull, who just jump in the water and start swimming away. And then while Zach is working out, Angela actually comes and asks him out. So he goes to see a movie with her. And like, this is where, again, I ended up getting a little disappointed by the end of this episode. But we actually get some character development. He's always pursuing her. She doesn't buy into it. Then he stops pursuing her, and she comes after him. Character progression, guys. This is something that, again, not a lot in Power Rangers, period. So when we get it, we got to treasure it, right? I mean, look how many love interests Billy started and we never see again. Or how many students these guys have, and then we only see them in the episode that they're pertinent to. So it's nice to see a recurring character have use besides like a one gag kind of thing. But then Gotan brings upon a storm. So everybody but Zach goes to the exposition machine because Zach is ignoring the call to stay on his date. Which, really, they kind of play it off like he just doesn't hear it because of the movie. But like, I would have had, if I was writing this episode, I would have had him look at it and then be like, they can handle it by themselves. And then like, because this is his one chance at his dream date, right? So like, part of the plot should be Zach struggling to choose between going on this date with this girl he's really into and being a Power Ranger, because they're teenagers. They should have emotional conflicts, especially when it comes to them trying to be teenagers, but also having this responsibility of protecting the world. This should be more prevalent than the plot. But instead, it's just kind of like they're always just quick to make the right decision. And that shouldn't be the case. They're teenagers. They should make mistakes. And I think that would make a much more compelling show as if it touched upon that. But again, he acts like he doesn't see it. But nevertheless, he's not there. So the others morph to Gotan, who just beats the fuck out of him. Like, he has a bow that outdoes the power bow, and just he's whooping him. And then at one point, Jason lands a blow on him, and he just picks up a log and starts like swinging this log around. I was like, I am Gotan, wielder of a log. It was fucking weird to see, but like I was into it. So Zach finally sees it, and he's like, hey Angela, I'm gonna go get some popcorn. And Zordon tells him, he's like, all right, I'll be right there. And he morphs right to action. Again, if I was writing this, instead of him just being like, yes, I know a decision to make and go and doing it, he should answer the call and like, what do you guys need? I'm in the middle of something. And they're like, Zach, your friends need you. And he's like, you should be like, can't they handle this by themselves? And Zordon's like, no, they need your help, Zach. And Zach still go back to the date and like struggle and then leave. Like, tell her, I'll be right back. I gotta handle this thing. Like, but it should be a conflict. He should be freaking out a little bit. And then when he tells Angela, she should be like mad about it. And he's got to juggle these emotions. That should be part of it, but it's not. So instead he goes right to Gotan and he's pissed. He's like, you ruined my date. And he starts beating up Gotan with his fury of pent up semen. So Gotan grows. They get the Dinosaurs, get the Megazord. And the goat has like snow powers, so it freezes the Megazord. So the Megazord just starts spinning, and that unfreezes it. Not entirely sure why that worked, but it did. Again, sometimes things just happen in Power Rangers. So they get the power sword, power slash, boom, done. Don't know why we needed Zach for that. But the trophy was destroyed when they destroyed Gotan, but like, who the fuck cares it's a trophy? It's not like it's a living thing like the pig. Hell, I don't even know why they made Mr. Tickle Sneezer such a big deal. Like, they should have just blown the bitch up. But, trophy's gone. And Zach comes back with popcorn. It's like toward the end of the movie, and he's like, hey, I'm sorry I'm gone. The line was long. And Angela dumps the popcorn on his head and leaves him there. So and again, it's kind of played like for, haha, look at Zach, he got popcorn dumped on his head. Isn't that hilarious? What it should be is that he comes back. He's like, hey, I'm sorry I was gone so long. And she goes like, I gave you a chance, and you just left me here like this? I should have known never to go out. Like, said some stinging words. There should have been some emotional shit. And Zach should have been like a dramatic moment. Like, maybe even he just sheds a tear or something, or he gets mad and he leaves, and like he's mad in the next episode, he's like mad at the Rangers and has to like kind of be okay. Like, there should be a conflict of being a teenager and being a hero, and then he slowly comes to the realization that he's the hero. And that the hero has to make sacrifices, sometimes like relationships. But that should have been more of a plot beat, but instead it's just like, ha, popcorn. And I know it's a kid's show, but like if I were to be tasked with rewriting Mighty Morphin for a modern, more preteen audience, or like with a more PG-13 vibe, I would have handled this a lot differently. But again, I know that's not what this is. That's just what I would have wanted. If it was that, I would be like losing my mind about this show. So then Bulk and Skull are brought in, covered in mud and gunk because they had been swimming in the lake forever trying to get away from Gotan. And then there's like a frog in his pants and he gets water dumped on him. There's a couple of gags to end the episode. But Bulk and Skull didn't really save this episode because they really weren't like super prevalent, or like didn't have that many good gags like they were in the last episode. So that was 41 through 44. Again, zero mention of Tommy. We only got him mentioned in the Power Ranger Day episode, and even then they didn't even mention the Green Ranger when they were doing Power Ranger Appreciation Day, which makes no sense. And then, so we never see him in school anymore. Never see him at Ernie's anymore. Jason David Frank's not credited on the show anymore. And we don't see the Dragon Shield, the Dragon Dagger, or the Dragon Zord in any of these episodes, in these 4 episodes. We should acknowledge that the Green Ranger was there. We have his tools to use. I don't understand why we didn't. Especially when we were having trouble fighting things. Shouldn't we have brought in the Dragon Zord at some point? I don't know. It just felt a little like these 4 episodes, there wasn't a whole lot here that made it feel like these were important episodes. Like the Zach Angela thing could have been better if it was written more thoroughly, right? And some Bulk and Skull stuff was good. But besides all that, there was not a whole lot of substance. If I'm like telling you, if you wanted to watch season 1 of Mighty Morphin, but you only wanted like the good episodes or the meaty episodes or the story episodes, I don't think any of these 4 episodes would make the cut. If I was going to put one of them in, it would probably be the Lions and Blizzards one, just because of the Zach and Angela stuff. But again, I don't think it was handled that well, but it is an interesting talking point, so maybe I would put that one on it. But the other 3 I don't think are very necessary at all. Oh, with that being said, that ends our discussion of episodes 41 through 44. Stay tuned next time where we talk about episodes 45 through 48 as we continue this motherfucking journey going through all of Power Rangers. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Guys, we got plenty of podcasts and other videos coming this year. I appreciate all the love and support that everybody's been showing me as I made this venture to a new career. And I also like to remind you guys to stay safe, stay nerdy. Until next time.